On a blind date, I ran into a painfully average, self-important man. To scare him off, I lied that I was pregnant with my domineering CEO's child. I never imagined my boss and several colleagues would be standing right behind me. I stumbled in shock. "Boss." He gave me a cool glance. "Careful. Don't jostle the baby. Recently, I have no idea what got into my mom. She somehow collected a whole stack of top-tier men information from our relatives and has been forcing me to go on blind dates with them. It's the weekend, and this is already the third one I've met. I hope Miss Lin can quit her job and stay home to focus on getting pregnant," the man across from me said earnestly. "I make $8,000 a month. As long as we live frugally, and you don't imitate those vain women who keep buying clothes, shoes, bags, and cosmetics, our life will be perfectly fine." I stared at the receding hairline, self-righteous man in front of me, my smile polite and completely fake. If he weren't introduced by a relative, I would have loved to rip off that toupee on his head and slap it right across his face. "Oh, right, my work is pretty busy too," he went on. "We don't need a big wedding. All that formality is meaningless. One of my college classmates just opened a photography studio. When it's time, we can take our wedding photos there. That way we can save a lot of unnecessary expenses." "Ugh. What's wrong?" My sudden dry heave finally made him stop talking. "Are you feeling unwell?" I hesitated. "It's nothing. Could it be that this restaurant isn't very hygienic?" "There's something I think I should tell you," I said, lowering my voice. "I'm pregnant." "Huh?" At the same time, I heard a small commotion behind me, and the man across the table shot to his feet in shock. "You're pregnant and you still came on a blind date?" I put on a wounded expression. "I didn't have a choice. The baby is actually my boss's." A cough suddenly sounded from behind me. I didn't pay much attention, throwing myself fully into the drama. Sigh, I never thought he'd be such a jerk. As soon as he found out I was pregnant, he dumped me and even tried to force me to get an abortion. Tell me, he's such a big shot boss, how could I possibly fight back against him? The balding man across from me was so stunned he couldn't even speak. I took a tactical sip of water, then looked at him with pitiful eyes. "Mr. Jean, since you want to marry me, you should be happy to accept the baby, right? Didn't your mom want a grandchild as soon as possible? Look, here's one already made." A soft chuckle came from behind me. The man in front of me visibly panicked. "No, Miss Lin, your mother never mentioned that you were pregnant. Hiding something this big from me is really not very fair, you know." "My mom doesn't know," I said quickly. "Please don't tell her. Miss Lin, I don't think we're suitable." He grabbed his bag and tried to leave. I stood up, pretending to block him. "Why? Just now you said we could register our marriage next week." His face darkened, his eyes full of disgust. "Miss Lin, I heard you're a secretary at a big company. I thought you were different from those other women, that you were disciplined and self-respecting. I never expected your private life to be so messy, getting pregnant out of wedlock. My family would never accept a woman like you." I watched him leave with a wounded expression. The smile I'd been trying to hold back hadn't even had time to spread across my face when I turned around and met a pair of unreadable eyes. I was so startled I stumbled again, my whole body going rigid as a chill ran straight down my spine. Boss. God. Can someone tell me why my boss is sitting at the table right behind me? How long has he been there? Don't tell me he heard everything I just said." He raised an eyebrow, unhurried and calm. "Careful," he said mildly. "Don't upset the baby." So he really had heard it all. I felt like crying without tears. Just as I was wondering whether I should fall to my knees and apologize, the man sitting across from him turned his head. "Hey, Secretary Lin." I almost fainted on the spot with my eyes wide open. It was actually John Leong. I'm doomed. Completely doomed. John Leong is famous for having a big mouth. If he heard this, doesn't that mean the entire company will know by tomorrow? No, I have to explain immediately. "Director Leong, this is a huge misunderstanding. I was just joking just now. Please don't overthink it. There is absolutely nothing going on between me and the boss. You mustn't spread this around the company." John gave me a look full of sympathy, then turned to look at Chris G with the expression of someone staring at a scumbag. Sigh. "I get it now." "Get what?" I asked. He looked me up and down, gaze stopping on my stomach. "It must have been hard on you. Director Leong, I'm really not pregnant." "Secretary Lin, don't just stand there. Standing too long isn't good for the baby. Come sit." "I already said I'm not pregnant, why won't anyone believe me?" Bracing myself, I turned to explain to Chris. "Boss, It's fine," he said. "Sit." "That's not what I meant." "What then?" He smiled. The way he smiled made my nerves jump. Especially since I had just done something so guilty. "Nothing," I whispered, not daring to contradict him. Carefully, I was about to sit next to John, but John stopped me. Someone's going to sit here. You sit next to Chris. Someone? I glanced at Chris, uncertain. Come here, he said. His smile sent another chill down my back. Chris holds grudges. Right now he's probably thinking up 100 terrible ways to get back at me. Reluctantly, I took the seat beside him. He poured me a glass of water. I was just about to take it when he pulled it back. Ah, I forgot. It's cold. You can't drink this while you're pregnant. Huh? My eyes went wide in shock. What on earth is he talking about? Don't look at me like that, he said lightly. Otherwise people will think I really don't want this child. Beside us, John gasped dramatically, eyes shining with pure gossip. You too, when did you? Before he could finish the question, we heard something drop heavily not far away. I turned toward the sound. Lily Lawn. Why is she here too? And she heard all of that. I'm finished. Rumor has it that Chris and Lily are childhood sweethearts, their families having arranged their engagement long ago. Does this make me the shameless homewrecker who's destroying their relationship? You're finally here. You're late every single time, John complained playfully. Lily's smile looked a little strained. Secretary Lynn is here as well, she said, still smiling as she walked over gracefully and sat in the only empty seat at the table, beside John. Why didn't you tell me beforehand that Secretary Lynn would be joining us? I glanced at Chris, who had no intention of explaining anything, and hurried to speak up, afraid of more misunderstanding. I'm here for a blind date today. I just happened to run into my boss and the others here. Blind date? She looked surprised. Yes. I'm at that age now, and my family has been pushing me to get married, I said. As soon as the words left my mouth, I could feel the icy aura from the person beside me. That sharp gaze made me feel guilty for no reason. My hand twitched as I reached for something to drink, anything to ease the tension. With someone as beautiful and capable as Secretary Lynn, the blind date must have gone well, Lily said gently. It was okay, I replied. But I still have to go see 2 more later. I'd said this much. She had to stop misunderstanding now, right? In this lifetime, I've always been honest and law-abiding, open and aboveboard. I have absolutely no intention of getting involved in anyone else's relationship. Her gaze turned strange as she looked at me, then shifted to Chris. After a long moment, she let out a soft laugh and asked, testing the waters, just now I heard you talking about a baby. What exactly does that mean? I hurried to distance myself. I was just joking with my boss. There's no baby. Chris calmly slid a glass of something over to me. I had no idea what it was, and I was a little shocked he'd even noticed my small, nervous fidget just now. I happened to be thirsty, so without thinking much of it, I picked it up and took a sip. I regretted it instantly. I've never liked sweet things, and this drink was so sugary it was cloying. I couldn't help it, I gagged a few times, making the 2 people across from me jump. Are you okay? I forced down the urge to throw up and waved my hand. I'm fine. Something seemed to occur to John. His nervous expression shifted into teasing. Secretary Lynn, you'd better start paying attention to your diet from now on. Chris, too, began gently patting my back, sounding soft and considerate. Too sour, he asked, looking helpless. I told you to stop drinking so many sour drinks lately, but you wouldn't listen. I stared at him, baffled. When did I ever? Just as I was about to argue, my eyes landed on the coffee spoon by his hand. I froze, then understood almost instantly. No wonder the drink tasted like straight sugar. So he dumped all the sugar into my glass earlier. Petty man. I only used him a little, and he's been clinging to it this hard? What's wrong? Your face is all red. Is it hot in here? He asked, looking innocent. I wanted to grind my teeth. But this was still my superior, after all, and I had just been trash-talking him behind his back. Since he's such a grudge holder, a bit of petty revenge is, fair enough, I guess. Forget it. I'll endure. I'm fine, I said with a stiff, polite smile. Across from us, John's gossip-hungry eyes were about to fall out of his head. You too, hide it well, he said. You've worked in the company for so many years, and I never noticed a thing. I decided to stop fighting it and simply gave up on explaining. Instead, I put on a shy little smile. Lily was still right there. I wanted to see how he planned to explain this. I've always kept my personal and professional life separate, Chris said calmly. I stared at him wide-eyed. What was wrong with Chris today? Had someone possessed him? I've known him for 5 years. I always knew he liked to mess with people, but he still had boundaries. Today, though, maybe he noticed my confusion, because he leaned in and murmured by my ear, I don't want Lily having any fantasies about me. Help me get rid of her, and I'll forgive what you just did. I blinked in surprise. Get rid of her how? You're my secretary. Do I really need to teach you something this simple? He said lazily. Don't tell me pregnancy's already made you stupid. I choked on air. Across the table, the two of them were staring at us whispering to each other, and Lily's expression kept getting darker. I hesitated for a moment. In the end, for the sake of my career, I steeled myself. Suddenly, I clapped a hand on Chris's shoulder. Before he could react, I plastered on a coy, bashful act and leaned into him. "Oh, you idiot. Why did you say it out loud?" I felt Chris's body stiffen under my cheek. He turned to glare at me, face dark. Across from us, John looked like he'd swallowed his tongue, eyes wide in horror. I was done. Absolutely done. Whatever pride I had left was dead and buried. But since I'd already started, I might as well go all the way and blow everything up. "Yes," I said, as if marching to my execution. "We do have a child." I didn't dare look at anyone's face, so I also missed the faint curl of Chris's lips. Lily's face drained of color. Even the hand holding her glass was trembling. "But I accidentally lost it," I added after a pause. I pretended to look stricken, then rushed to explain, it had nothing to do with him. It was my fault. I wasn't careful. Perfect. That had exactly the flavor of, the more you try to cover it up, the guiltier it sounds. Chris tilted his head at me, eyes glinting with an amused, unreadable smile. My heart skipped guiltily, and I hurried to change the subject. "Director Leong, President Lon," I said, "since Chris and I are in an office relationship, we'll have to trouble you both to keep this a secret for us." "Chris," John repeated, and even his tone changed. "What?" I asked. "And nothing." John swallowed hard. I've got something to do, so I'll be heading off first." Lily finally couldn't sit still anymore. As she stood, she glanced at Chris several times, lips parting like she wanted to say something. She was probably waiting for him to stop her. But Chris acted like he didn't see her at all. He simply lowered his head and looked at me with gentle eyes. "Baby," he said softly, "I'll drive you home later." "Baby? Who exactly are you trying to disgust here?" Once Lily had left, I scooted back into my seat properly, feeling awkward. "You two really know how to put on a show," John sighed. "But Chris, since Secretary Lin is your girlfriend, how come at the office you still order her around like a dog?" "Hey," I protested. "Watch it. Who are you calling a dog? On top of that, you squeeze every bit out of her weekends," John went on. "She's always working overtime with you, traveling on business with you." He trailed off, as if some realization had just hit him. His eyes sharpened. Well, you bastard. Everyone always says you're such a slow straight guy, but it turns out you're better at this than I am." I honestly couldn't keep up with John's mental gymnastics. That said, when it came to him squeezing my off hours, I wasn't actually that mad. For all that Chris could be a total slave driver and had impossibly high standards, he really did pay a lot for overtime. And going on business trips with him wasn't that tiring either. Same flights, same hotels, same food, we were treated exactly the same. Honestly, how many bosses are that generous? I had no idea when John slipped away. By the time Chris called my name, only the two of us were left. "Let's go," he said. "I'll take you home." "There's no need to trouble you," I replied quickly. "What? You still have plans?" His gaze slid over me, cool and faint. "Going to meet those other two men?" "Two men?" I froze for a second, then remembered the excuse I'd given Lily earlier. "And no. I'm just going to a class reunion," I muttered. "I'll take you," he said. My heart lurched. "You've got to be kidding me." I'd just tossed that out casually. I hadn't planned on actually going. "Boss, you're really busy. I can't take up your personal time. I can just go on my own." "It's not like I've never driven you before," he replied. "Why so polite all of a sudden?" His eyes narrowed slightly. "Unless Secretary Lin has done something to wrong me." Guilty conscience, activated. Of course not," I said with a dry, awkward laugh. I couldn't weasel my way out of it, so in the end I was forced to get into his car. But I truly had no desire to show up at that reunion. It had been so many years since high school graduation, and I'd never attended a single one of their gatherings. This time, though, the legendary school heartthrob of our year, Julian West, was coming. If I showed up as well, everyone would definitely assume I came for him. After all, my public, humiliating confession and rejection back then had become common knowledge. Everyone knew I'd like Julian. Sigh. In the car, I alternated between frowning at my WeChat screen and staring out the window, sighing. By the time I realized where we were already at the venue. Chris unbuckled his seatbelt and flicked a finger against my forehead. I jumped, yanked back to reality. What? "We're here," he said flatly. "Oh. Thank you, boss. Goodbye, boss." I climbed out of the car dutifully. My plan was to wait for him to drive off and then quietly slip away. Who would have thought that the moment I stepped out, I'd bump into my high school classmates? "Emma, you actually came," one of them exclaimed. "I'm impressed." It had been 7 years. I was amazed they could recognize me so quickly. We've been talking all day about whether you'd show up this time, another laughed. And look, you did. As soon as we heard Julian was back in the country, you came right away. 7 years without seeing you, someone else chimed in. You've gotten even prettier. When Julian sees you later, I bet he'll regret turning you down back then. They laughed and teased among themselves. All I wanted was for them to shut up. Did they really think they were being funny? Oh, nice car, someone said suddenly. They'd finally noticed the car beside me and, without any restraint, crowded around it to gawk. This thing's expensive, one of them whistled. Emma, you've been doing pretty well these past few years, huh? Then they noticed Chris sitting inside. Tom, Julian's old high school buddy, hesitated when he saw him. Your boyfriend brought you here, he asked. I glanced awkwardly at Chris in the car, not sure whether I should deny it or admit it. Tom had been Julian's good friend in high school. The others standing around us also knew all about what had happened between Julian and me. They were probably just waiting to see me make a fool of myself tonight. I didn't want to be the punchline to their late-night gossip. While I was still wavering, Chris had already gotten out of the car. He walked straight to my side, slipped an arm around my shoulders, and before I even had time to be shocked, he was already speaking. Nice to meet you all, he said smoothly. I'm Emma's boyfriend, Chris. I stared at him, eyes wide. He answered me with a meaningful little smile. There has never been a moment when I was so grateful that he can read people. Usually, every time he sees straight through what I'm thinking, I'm annoyed, sometimes even angry. But this time, with just one look, he immediately understood how stuck I was, and helped me out, letting bygones be bygones. I was, actually moved. Maybe all these years of breaking my back for the company weren't entirely in vain. Everyone else was just as stunned as I was. After a long, awkward silence, people finally started greeting us stiffly. That was when Julian showed up. At his side was my high school best friend, Lucy. The two of them both froze when they saw me, probably because they hadn't expected me to come. To be fair, I had said in the group chat that I wouldn't be here. Julian's gaze fell on Chris standing beside me. When he saw Chris's arm around my shoulders, he looked a bit taken aback. He glanced at Chris, hesitated, then started, "You're." But Chris only gave him a cool, sideways glance, and Julian swallowed the rest of his words, simply staring at me with a complicated expression. I didn't understand why. "Emma, long time no see." Lucy greeted me in a falsely warm tone. I glanced at her, not particularly in the mood to talk. "Long time no see." She didn't seem bothered. Her attention shifted to Chris instead. "And this is, your friend?" I gave a non-committal and, not caring whether Chris minded or not, grabbed his arm and dragged him inside. Behind us, I could still faintly hear Tom and the others joking around. "You two went to the same university, then went abroad together, and now you're both back together. Don't tell me. Your taste really is terrible," someone snickered. "But at least his taste is good, he turned you down." Soon, it was just the two of us in the hallway. Chris started being infuriating again. I glanced at the hand still resting on my shoulder. He probably hadn't even realized he was still holding on. "Boss, there's no one around anymore. You can let go now." "You sure?" He arched a brow. "So someone doesn't need my help anymore." His reminder snapped me back to reality. I immediately changed my expression and went into full flattery mode. "Boss, could you help me out a little tonight?" He looked at me with undisguised disdain. "Secretary Lynn, you're awfully realistic. When you need me, you flatter and coddle me. When you don't need me." I was wrong, I cut in obediently. "Boss, as long as you agree to pretend to be my boyfriend tonight, I'll do whatever you ask from now on. I absolutely won't complain." He looked very reluctant. "Fine. I've always been considerate toward my employees," he said loftily. "I'll help you this once." Inwardly, I snorted. Outwardly, I kept my best obedient smile. "But, Secretary Lynn," he added, "I didn't take you for such a devoted lover. All these years, I've never seen you with a boyfriend. So it turns out you just couldn't let go of your old crush." I smiled at him through gritted teeth. "Boss, the reason I haven't had a boyfriend all these years, isn't that because of you?" "Me?" He lowered his head to look at me, something strange flickering in his eyes. "Of course it's you. If you didn't make me work overtime all the time, would I really have no time left to meet new people?" "So Secretary Lynn is blaming me, then," he said slowly. Sigh. "And you just said you'd never complain again." By the time we walked into the private room with Chris at my side, it felt like everyone already knew we were coming. Heads turned one after another, curiosity and gossip practically written on their faces. A chill slid down my spine. I glanced around the room. Julian and his little circle had already arrived. "Emma, it's been years," someone called out. "Looks like you've been doing pretty well. Tom and the others said your boyfriend drove you here in a car worth several million." In just a few minutes, apparently everyone knew I'd brought a boyfriend. Tom and his crew clearly hadn't wasted any time spreading the word. "Emma, what does your boyfriend do?" another asked. "The richest and most successful among us is West University's former campus heartthrob. I wonder, compared to him, who earns more, your boyfriend or him?" As soon as the words left his mouth, I heard a soft chuckle beside me. It was the kind of laugh you make when you hear a particularly funny joke. Thinking I'd misheard, I looked up at Chris, only to find him looking straight at Julian. Julian, for his part, seemed unable to meet his gaze, eyes darting away like he had something to feel guilty about. "Not to be rude," someone else piped up, "but did you, pay some pretty boy to pretend to be your boyfriend?" Here we go, the troublemaker had arrived. The one speaking was Grace, the girl who'd never gotten along with me back in high school. I shot Chris a worried glance. He was watching me with a half-smile that wasn't quite a smile. "A pretty boy, huh?" I could only give a strained smile back that clearly said, "We'll talk about this at home." He raised a brow and leaned close to murmur in my ear, "We'll settle that later." Being ignored, Grace flushed with anger. "You never come to any of the reunions," she said loudly. "But the moment Julian and Lucy show up, you appear too, and even bring a boyfriend. It's hard not to think you're still hung up on Julian, but don't want to lose face, so you went to some bar to hire a little pretty boy to act as your boyfriend." Julian, who'd suddenly been dragged into it, looked over with a complicated expression. "Emma and I are just ordinary friends," he said. "She already has a boyfriend." "Everyone, stop joking." The room fell into stunned silence. "Julian, you've changed," someone whispered. "You're actually speaking up for Emma now." Tom joked, "What's up with you? You've been out of it since the moment you walked in." "What's wrong? Just got back from overseas and our glorious returning student hasn't adjusted to being home yet." Julian glanced at Chris again and dropped his gaze, saying nothing. Lucy, standing beside him, was the one who spoke up. "Don't give him a hard time. Julian just flew back today and went straight to visit his uncle's family, and then came here right afterward. He hasn't had a moment's rest. You all know his uncles from the G family." "Enough," Julian cut her off sharply, then shot an uneasy look in Chris's direction. Lucy looked a bit wronged, but someone nearby chimed in, "Julian, you're related to the G family? My cousin is about to graduate and really wants to get into G Group. Do you think you can pull some strings for her?" Julian's eyes flickered, stealing several glances at Chris. "G Group has always emphasized fairness and hates backdoor connections," he said stiffly. "There's nothing I can do. G Group, call me paranoid, but there aren't exactly many companies called G Group in our city." I turned my head to look at Chris. He was calm and unhurried, clearly enjoying the show. Even though he'd come here as my fake boyfriend, to support me, he'd apparently decided it was more fun to sit back and watch. "Oh, right," someone said suddenly. "I heard the current chairman of G Group is pretty young and accomplished. Does anyone know his name?" Julian had just opened his mouth to answer when Lucy snatched the chance. "It's Julian's cousin, Chris," she announced proudly. "He and Julian even studied at the same university overseas. He's 3 years ahead of Julian, and back in school he was a big deal too. He even graduated as an outstanding student." "Chris, that name sounds familiar," someone muttered. I turned in shock to look at the man beside me. Before I could ask anything, Tom suddenly blurted out, "No way. Emma, your boyfriend's name is Chris too." As his words faded, something seemed to click in his mind. His expression went stiff. Around us, everyone's gaze turned complicated as they stared at Chris. Someone finally asked, very cautiously, "Are you President G?" Chris glanced at Julian, the corners of his thin lips slowly curling into a mocking smile. "You can ask him," he said lightly. The room buzzed with confusion. "What's going on?" Julian's face went paper white. President G, President G," Chris repeated lazily. "Didn't you say behind my back that I was your cousin?" He smiled. Julian's whole body seemed to go cold in an instant. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Chris looked at him with open sarcasm. "Julian, your father is my dad's driver. Our family paid for you to study abroad. Since when did I become your cousin?" The room exploded. "President G, what do you mean by that?" someone gasped. I was stunned too. What kind of soap opera plot twist is this? No way. No way. This couldn't be what I was thinking, right? "President G, aren't you Julian's cousin?" someone pressed. "Is there some kind of misunderstanding?" Lucy couldn't even force a smile anymore. She'd clearly come today planning to show off in front of me. Who would have thought that Julian wouldn't explain a thing? He just bolted from the room. Lucy, too, had no face left to stay. She shot me a resentful glare, then rushed out after him. Everyone was stunned into silence for a long moment. Then they all seemed to figure out the truth. Shock spread across their faces. So the campus god, with the good grades and impressive family background, had been a complete lie. All those times they'd seen him dropped off by the G family's driver at school, they'd assumed he really was some relative of the G family. Turned out his dad was just the driver. They'd been fooled for years. Thinking about how they'd just been laughing at me, questioning whether my boyfriend was a rented pretty boy, people suddenly started to look uneasy. Grace was the first one to panic. "Emma, I was just joking earlier. Don't take it to heart, okay?" I glanced at her. "It's fine." Then I looked around at everyone else. "My boyfriend only came to drop me off," I said. "He still has something to do later, so we won't be staying long." "Oh, don't go yet," someone protested. "You hardly ever come. It's been 7 years since we saw you. None of us have even had time to catch up with you." Now they were all suddenly enthusiastic. But I knew full well they were here for Chris, not me. They pulled me along so I couldn't get away. I looked at Chris, torn. What I wanted was for him to rescue me, drag me out of here. After all, who would dare block the way of the chairman of G Group? But he just acted like he didn't get it at all. "With such warm hospitality, it'd be rude to turn them down," he said mildly. "Emma, don't kill the mood," someone chimed in. In the end, the two of us were dragged back to our seats. Once we sat down, everyone started fawning over Chris in obvious and not so obvious ways, asking him all sorts of questions, mainly trying to dig out how we'd met and how long we'd been together. Shockingly, Chris answered them all patiently, even though every single word was nonsense. He claimed he'd first seen me back in my final year of high school and fallen in love with me at first sight, but he'd been preparing to study abroad at the time, so he never approached me. Later, as soon as he returned to the country, he'd gone looking for me and pursued me fiercely. Seeing the envy on everyone's faces as they looked at me, I had to admit, I was impressed by his storytelling skills. In reality, Chris and I had met in my junior year of college. I'd been bored during summer break and wanted to find an internship. Unexpectedly, I ran into a scammer and almost signed a shady loan contract. Chris had appeared then, ripped the scammer's act to shreds, and then roasted me for being brainless and stupid. After that, I don't know what kind of cursed fate it was, but I kept running into him both on and off campus. He often came to our university as an investor. Somehow, the department leadership found out I knew him and had me receive him every time he visited. Little by little, we got familiar with each other. He wasn't exactly pleasant to listen to, he always found a way to belittle me between the lines, but in my academic life and later in my job hunting, he really did give me solid advice and guidance. We were technically superior and subordinate, but I also thought of us as friends. At least, I did. Otherwise I wouldn't be using him as material every single time I went on a blind date. 3 years ago, I hadn't planned on accepting his offer to join G Group. But after getting rejected by company after company at interviews, I eventually had no choice but to accept the back door he opened for me. To this day, I'm still confused. My grades were the top of my major. How did I fail every single interview? "Emma, when you get married, don't forget to invite your old classmates," someone laughed. I'd zoned out for just a moment. How had the conversation jumped straight to marriage? I snuck an awkward glance at Chris. His expression didn't budge. "President G, when are you planning to propose?" someone asked tentatively. I knew these people too well. One look at their faces and I could tell, they were convinced Chris would never marry me, that I was just a fling to him. "That depends on when Emma's willing to say yes," he replied. "I'm ready anytime." Wow. Chris was really giving me face tonight. I forced a laugh. "No rush. We'll take it slow." "How can we not rush?" he said smoothly. "Emma, I'm in such a hurry I can't wait another second. I want to marry you." Egged on by the crowd's teasing, his clear eyes were locked on mine. I was stunned, and for a split second, I couldn't tell whether he was joking or not. I almost believed him. My heart skipped a beat, completely out of rhythm. After more than an hour of being delayed, I finally found an opportunity to slip away with Chris. He'd had some alcohol at the gathering and couldn't drive, so I slid into the driver's seat without thinking. I was planning to take him straight home, but he said he wanted to get some air. So I had no choice but to drive him around aimlessly. If I'd known I was going to run into one of my previous blind dates, I would never have agreed to that walk. As soon as Li Ji saw me, he ran over enthusiastically. "Emma. Who's this?" Chris had drunk a bit and seemed a little foggy. "Her boyfriend." "Chris," he answered. I didn't even have time to be shocked before Li Ji blurted out, "Oh, so you two made up? That's great." "Made up?" "Yeah. Emma, you said before that your boss wanted you to get an abortion. I was worried about you for so long. But now that you've made up, he'll definitely take responsibility for you and the baby, won't he?" I was done. I could feel a sharp gaze drilling into the side of my face. I wanted to tuck my head down into the sidewalk. After Li finally left, I tried to leave too, but Chris grabbed my wrist. Explain, he said. I forced a stiff smile. Boss, if I tell you this is all a misunderstanding, would you believe me? His dark eyes burned into mine, unblinking and intense. Looks like you talk about me behind my back a lot, he said lightly. And just today, I've already run into 2 of them. Tell me, how many more are there? Boss, I was wrong, I said immediately. So you'll still dare to do it next time? I wilted. It's mainly because my mom keeps forcing me to go on blind dates. And that excuse is just really useful. Pregnant with my child. I dumped you. I made you get an abortion, he recapped slowly. Amazing. You've gifted me so many charges out of thin air. If I don't make a few of them come true, wouldn't that be an insult to your storytelling? Make them come true? I repeated weakly, looking up at him. His black eyes were strange and deep. Emma, he said softly. For no reason at all, my heart skipped again, completely offbeat. I hadn't had a drop of alcohol that night, so why was my heart racing like this? I'm hungry, he said suddenly. Treat me to dinner. I let out the breath I'd been holding. Looked like he was willing to let this go, for now. But it was already late. Most restaurants were closed at this hour. I drove him around for a while and finally found only a late-night street stall still open. Luckily, he didn't seem to mind. You can't come to a street stall and not drink, he said. But, boss, I still have to drive, I protested. It's fine. I'll have Secretary Lee come pick up the car. All right. He'd helped me out so much tonight, and I'd been bad-mouthing him behind his back. This could count as my apology. Unfortunately, my alcohol tolerance is genuinely terrible. Chris has never made me entertain clients before, so I rarely drink. After just a few drinks, I was already floating. By the time they dragged me into the car, I'd completely lost control of my tongue and started ranting about him non-stop. His face had gone thunderous, but I was way too high to notice. One moment I was calling him petty and narrow-minded, the next, I was complaining he was poisonous-tongued and completely lacking empathy, then I started accusing him of exploiting people. Cursing him apparently wasn't enough, I started taking advantage too, insisting he call me Dad. And as if that weren't bad enough, I even reached out and grabbed his face, pinching his cheeks. Your skin is so smooth and soft, I slurred. You really are quite the pretty boy. Secretary Lee was driving with both hands clenched on the steering wheel, his whole posture screaming panic. When we finally arrived at Chris's place and he saw me being hauled out of the car and taken inside, he looked like he wanted to pray for my soul. When the lights came on, I lifted my head and found a pair of bright eyes incredibly close to mine. That strange fluttering in my chest came back in an instant. I blinked, and I don't know what possessed me, but suddenly, I leaned in. Those clear eyes were full of shock at first, then slowly darkened. It was a sensation unfamiliar yet dangerously addictive. Dizzy, I felt the world spin. It was like someone had picked me up and was carrying me. I heard 2 urgent kicks against a door, my vision fell into darkness, and ragged breathing echoed by my ear. I'll give you 3 seconds to regret it, a low voice murmured. Say stop, and I'll stop. What's that supposed to mean? I mumbled. I don't understand. Who even am I? It's so dark, how am I supposed to know? I was oddly annoyed at how slow he was being. Apparently my drunk temper was terrible. Chris, can you do this or not? I snapped. The words had barely left my mouth when my breath was stolen again. I don't know how much time passed before I could finally breathe properly. By then, there were faint, muffled words by my ear. No preparations, not tonight. When I woke up, the sky was already bright. I stared at the mess scattered all over the floor as last night's memories crashed back into my throbbing head. My whole body went cold. Last night, I'd gotten drunk and forced a kiss on Chris. Panicking, I yanked the blanket up and looked down at the clothes I was wearing. They weren't mine. Someone had changed them. Who had changed them? I clutched my hair in both hands. I couldn't remember anything that happened after that kiss. Did I actually sleep with Chris? I couldn't find my clothes anywhere in the room. Panicking, I got up and hurried out the door. I was just about to shout for Chris when I saw an elegant middle-aged woman in the living room. Chris's mom. I almost turned to stone on the spot. Mrs. G, I squeaked. She snapped out of her own surprise and gave me a once-over, from my borrowed clothes to the hickey on my neck. A flicker of awkwardness crossed her face. I must have come at a bad time, she said. Mortified, I flapped my hands. And no, not at all. Please, have a seat. What was I supposed to say? I'd spent the night at her son's place. I was wearing her son's clothes. She was definitely going to think I was frivolous, shameless, and completely lacking self-respect. Somebody kill me. You're up, Chris's calm voice floated in from the balcony. I secretly let out a sigh of relief and shot him a desperate help me look. He just hung up his call like nothing was wrong and said casually, "Mom, I forgot to mention, there's someone at home." His thick skin and mental fortitude were truly something to behold. At a time like this, how could he still act like there was absolutely nothing unusual about the situation in front of him? "Did you need something from me today?" he asked his mother. Mrs. G gave me one more glance. "I came because I heard some things from little Liang," she said. "I wanted to ask you about them. But now, it doesn't seem necessary." She paused, then looked at my stomach with a complicated expression. "In the first few months, you two shouldn't fool around too much," she added. "First few months?" "Got it," Chris said smoothly. "Don't just say that to me, look at this poor girl," she snapped. "Is any part of her body still fine?" Mrs. G suddenly lost her temper. Chris remained completely unmoved, but I jumped. Realizing she'd frightened me, Mrs. G quickly softened her tone. "Secretary Lin, Emma," she corrected gently, "when do your parents have time? Our two families should meet properly." My brain was still mush. I didn't dare question her, so I could only stare at Chris in confusion. He walked over and slipped an arm around my shoulders. "Mom, there's no rush," he said. "No rush," she exploded. "She's already been pregnant for months and you're not in a rush? Do you plan to wait until her belly is huge before letting her put on a wedding dress?" I finally understood. Mrs. G had completely misunderstood. She thought I was pregnant with Chris's child. "Auntie, this is a misunderstanding," I blurted out. "I'm not pregnant, and my boss and I aren't, like that." Mrs. G just gave me a look that clearly said, "Have you seen yourself right now?" My words died in my throat. Just then, the doorbell rang. I stared at Chris in panic. Why did his place have such a revolving door of visitors today? "I'll get it," he said. I stood in the living room with Mrs. G, the two of us looking at each other in awkward silence. A few seconds later, my mother's thunderous roar echoed down the hallway. "Emma, you've really got some nerve. It's bad enough you didn't come home last night, you actually stayed over at a man's place." I turned toward the door, my whole body going rigid. "Mom." She took one look at my clothes and the marks on my neck and didn't care whose house this was or who else was present. She immediately raised her hand to hit me. I yelped and scrambled around the living room trying to dodge her. "Mom, we can talk about this at home." I was going to die of embarrassment. Chris and Mrs. G rushed over to stop her, and the four of us turned into a chaotic tangle of flailing limbs. It was only after we finally sat down and talked calmly that I found out what had happened. My mom had called me over and over last night. Chris, afraid she'd worry herself sick, eventually picked up and gave her the address. "Future in-law," Mrs. G said politely, "I was just thinking we should find a time to visit you." My mom was not having it. "Who are you calling future in-law?" she demanded. I wanted to sink into the floor. I tugged at her sleeve and whispered, "Mom, this is my boss and his mother. Please be polite. I'll explain everything once we get home." "Future in-law, this can't be delayed," Mrs. G insisted calmly. "Emma is already pregnant. We really must bring the wedding forward." The way my mom's eyes bulged, I knew I was finished. I'd played this too far. There was no way to talk my way out now. "Why don't we step outside and talk privately?" Mrs. G suggested. "Emma just woke up, you should let her freshen up a little." The truth was, she didn't feel entirely at ease either. After all, her son knocking a girl up before marriage was hardly proper. At her words, my mom looked at me, then at Chris, and finally turned back to Mrs. G. "Fine. Let's go talk," she said. The two of them left the room. I collapsed onto the sofa behind me, completely drained. When I looked up, Chris was actually smiling. I saw red instantly. "Boss, you're really not planning to explain anything?" He lifted a brow, all innocent. "What exactly should I be explaining? Weren't you the one spreading pregnancy rumors about yourself everywhere?" Okay, he had a point. "And you getting drunk and taking advantage of me last night," he added. "We haven't even settled that yet." My face went pale, then red, then pale again. "So we really slept together last night?" I whispered. "Take a guess," he said, brow arched, lips curved in a wickedly attractive smile. My heart gave another guilty lurch. There were hickeys on his neck too. That was definitely my doing. I was drunk. I don't remember anything. "Besides, it's not like you suffered," I muttered. "Oh?" He leaned back. "How did I not suffer?" He suddenly pulled out his phone and showed me a WeChat group chat. It was the company group. John, that loudmouth, had been yelling in the chat like a human megaphone since last night. "President Chris is going to be a dad." Now the whole company knew. He hadn't said who the mother was. No, to be precise, he hadn't typed my name. "But you can't keep this kind of thing secret forever. See? My mom already found out," Chris said. "I've suddenly become an expectant father. Don't you think you should take responsibility? Where am I supposed to magically conjure up a child for everyone?" I wanted to cry. How am I supposed to take responsibility? I'm not actually pregnant. It's not too late to make that true now, he said lazily. Huh? He suddenly leaned in, his dark, burning eyes locked unblinkingly on mine. Last night, he murmured, Secretary Lin was very enthusiastic. Who knows? Maybe once is enough to hit the mark. All the blood drained from my face. No way. He stared at me for a long time, his gaze so deep and steady it felt like my heart was dangling in midair. Then he suddenly laughed softly. So you really don't remember? He straightened up. Relax. I was teasing you. Nothing happened last night. I lit up. Really? He lifted his brows and stood. Though I have to say, the way you put your clothes back on and immediately pretend nothing happened, you really do have the air of a heartless player. Talking about clothes made my brain snag again. If nothing happened last night, then, these clothes. I changed them, he said. I wanted to cry. I'd taken a huge loss. I couldn't remember a thing. Even if I had taken advantage of him last night, I had no memory of it. I'd experienced nothing and still gotten completely seen. You puked all over yourself last night, he added calmly. You even ruined my bed. If I didn't change your clothes, what was I supposed to do? He looked a little helpless, then paused. If you really feel cheated, he said slowly, I can strip now and let you look your fill. He actually started to take off his shirt. I panicked and lunged forward to stop him. That was exactly when my mom and Mrs. G walked back in. They froze in perfect unison at the sight of us wrestling on the sofa. Then, also in perfect unison, they said, you two carry on. We'll be going. Chris glanced at the freshly closed door. With things like this, he said mildly, I'm afraid it's impossible for Secretary Lin to retreat unscathed now. My anxiety went through the roof. Then what do we do? Get married, he said. You're serious? He didn't need to look that pleased about it. It almost made me wonder if he actually liked me. I don't even know how I left Chris's place. I just know I definitely fled in disgrace. I didn't even have time to change, just bolted out wearing his loungewear. Once I was outside, I immediately regretted it. Run for what? It's Monday tomorrow. I'm going to see him anyway. I'm his secretary. When I got home, my mom was already on the phone with every aunt and cousin in her contacts. The topic? That I was getting married. News to me. I rushed over to stop her and tried to explain everything, but after listening, she only looked calm. She said she wasn't angry and told me there was no need to hide it. I was crushed. I had no idea what she and Chris's mom had talked about. On Monday, as soon as I stepped into the office, I was immediately surrounded. I thought they'd found out the truth and my guilt spiked. Only to realize they were all asking when Chris G and Lily were getting married. Secretary Lin, you're so close to the boss, someone said. You must have heard something, right? My mood took another hit. Seriously, not one of them could be suspicious about me? Why was it always Lily they thought of? After dodging their questions with vague answers, I slipped into the secretary's office. Secretary Lee told me the boss wasn't in. I'd just started to breathe in relief when he added, he went to meet with Miss Lily. I knew our company had been negotiating a partnership with Lily's family's company, but for some reason, hearing it this time still rubbed me the wrong way. At noon, John came to drag me out for lunch. Just thinking about how he'd promised to keep a secret 1 minute and blasted it in the company group chat the next made my blood pressure spike. Director Liang, go eat by yourself. I still have work to do. No can do, he said cheerfully. Chris and I are childhood friends. Since he's not here today, I have to take good care of you, Anne. I'm begging you, this is still the secretary's office, I cut him off quickly. In the end, the two of us went to a restaurant near the company. The whole time, John treated me as if I were made of porcelain, like I was an actual pregnant woman. I held it in for a long time before finally snapping. Director Liang, can you act normal? You're not like this at all usually. Well, you're pregnant. Of course I should take good care of you, he said matter-of-factly. I already told you I'm not. Oh, so you lost it, he lowered his voice. I get it, I get it. He even winked at me and poured me a glass of warm water. I was speechless. But really, Secretary Lin, you're impressive, he added. You even got Chris's mom on your side. Break up with him, you liar, you made me embarrass myself so badly, she really let him have it. I was still trying to figure out how to explain that I'd just been joking yesterday when I suddenly heard Lucy's voice from the other side of the restaurant. I looked over. Julian was with her. You know Julian too? I asked. Of course, John said. He's the son of Chris's driver. I've seen him a few times. Then he blinked. Wait, you know him. High school classmate, I said. John stared. This world is tiny. You and Julian were classmates? While we were talking, things had already blown up at their table. You really think I ever wanted you? Lucy's voice rose sharply. You were just a way for me to disgust Emma. I only went after you because she liked you. I wanted to steal what she liked. You think I'm impressed by you, another voice snapped back. If your family didn't have a bit of filthy money, I wouldn't have bothered with you at all. And you still think you can compare to Emma? From high school until now, have you ever actually beaten her at anything? Now she's with Chris, just that alone puts her miles ahead of you. However many people there are in a fight, it's always the third person who ends up feeling the most awkward. I was honestly impressed. It was bad enough they were shouting at each other in public, but did they have to scream my name at the top of their lungs? We were so close to the company. What if other employees heard them? Did they not care about my reputation at all? Secretary Lynn, your taste back then, John said, giving me the same look of disdain Chris always wore. I couldn't even be bothered to explain. I was young and stupid, I muttered. The whole thing really was complicated. Back in high school, I'd never liked Julian in the way everyone imagined. I've always been a bit cold and distant and didn't have many friends. Lucy was the only one who often came to talk to me. She was enthusiastic, so I didn't push her away when she asked me to walk with her. But she brought up Julian every single day, saying everyone thought we were a good match, urging me to go after him, promising that if I confessed, I'd definitely succeed. If Julian was playing basketball, she dragged me to watch. If he joined some club activity, she signed me up without asking. If someone wrote Julian a love letter, she wrote one too, under my name. Over time, the whole school started gossiping that I liked Julian. Back then, my impression of him was simply, I'm ranked first in the grade, he's second. I didn't care what people said, so I never bothered to clarify anything. Our solo interactions were basically limited to bumping into him at the school gate when he got out of the car his family's driver, no, his dad, was driving, and me giving a polite nod. The only thing that vaguely counted as any sort of moment between us was on the day of the college entrance exam. It rained after the test. I was standing at the school gate without an umbrella. His dad had arrived early and was waiting in the car. Maybe he saw I didn't have an umbrella, so he kindly brought one over to me. Later, wanting to return the umbrella, I specifically went to look for Julian at the graduation party. I hadn't even managed to say a word yet when a love letter fell out of the umbrella I handed him. Egged on by Lucy and Grace, that love letter, which I had never written, was passed around for everyone to read. And just like that, I was forced into the role of Julian's secret admirer. That wasn't even the most embarrassing part. The worst part was Julian's reaction after everyone loudly read the letter out. He looked terrified. Emma, don't joke around like that, he said. I can't accept this. I'll die. That line spread like wildfire, and by the time everyone finished interpreting it, the story had turned into, I'd aggressively chased Julian, and scared him half to death. So even years after graduating, the story of my confession was still famous. I don't know when Julian and Lucy left the restaurant. John, however, wouldn't stop asking about my relationship with Julian, and I got so irritated I rushed through my meal and went back to the office. Chris still wasn't back. I didn't see him at all before the end of the day. Does it really take that long to discuss a partnership with Lily? I was in a bad mood and had no idea why. I'd never known my personality could be this sulky and fickle. When I got home, my mom wouldn't stop pestering me about my progress with Chris. His mom and I talked, she said. What about a wedding at the end of this year? It's perfect, New Year's will be lively too. Mom, I'm really not pregnant, and I don't have that kind of relationship with my boss, I said, exhausted. Can you please not make things worse? He didn't even talk to me today. No relationship, and you still spent the night at his place, she demanded. All just a misunderstanding, huh? Fine. If it's a misunderstanding, then you're going on more blind dates. This year, you will get married. After being nagged like that for days, I finally packed a bag and ran away from home in the middle of the night, hiding out at my childhood friend's place. I just couldn't listen to her chanting anymore. You see, my friend said as we lay around chatting. This is what happens when you're too good, it makes people jealous. Look at what your popularity was like in high school. I pretended to be shy. Was I really that good? His mouth twitched. I wouldn't say that exactly. It's more that you're pretty and your grades were good, and you always had that cold resting face. You look like you're hard to approach. Very easy to dislike at first glance. I've seen you staring at your phone. Who are you waiting for? No one, I said quickly, guiltily withdrawing my hand. Chris is a workaholic, I've always known that. Ever since the partnership with the lawn group was finalized, he's been insanely busy for days. It was as if he'd completely forgotten the little incident between us. From the day I ran out of his apartment until now, he hasn't mentioned it once. Our boss is terrifying at negotiations, someone said one afternoon while I was out making coffee. The lawn group actually agreed to give up 10% of the profits. 10% is nothing, another replied. Honestly, I bet the two families are going to become one marriage alliance, you know. They were gossiping so loudly I couldn't help overhearing a few lines. To be honest, that day in the restaurant when Chris had me pretend to be his pregnant girlfriend to drive Lily away, I'd thought his cooperation with the lawn group was doomed. Who would have thought that not only did the deal not fall through, they managed to close it, and Lily even agreed to such a generous profit concession. It didn't make any sense. Did something happen between them that I didn't know about? Did they make up? Then what was the point of everything I did before? Looking at it now, the clown was me all along. Emma, your coffee is overflowing. An employee's reminder finally pulled me back to reality. Still distracted, I returned to the secretary's office. I had just sat down when Chris walked over to my desk and knocked on it a few times before I snapped out of it. What are you thinking about? I've been calling you forever. I stood up at once, posture straight and formal. Sorry, boss. Do you have any instructions for me? He paused for a second. You don't have to talk to me like that. Sit down. We can talk. I pretended not to hear that part. Do you have any instructions for me, boss? He cleared his throat lightly. Are you free tonight? Everyone nearby subtly turned to look over. Is there work to do? I asked. No, he hesitated. I want to take you out to dinner. As a reward. There's no need, boss. Working for the company is what I should do. And which boss takes a single employee out to dinner alone? In the past, that wouldn't have bothered me at all. A free meal, only an idiot would say no. But now, I really didn't like doing things that might cause misunderstandings. Actually, I mainly have something I want to talk to you about, he added. Whatever you need to say, you can say it now, I replied. I'm moving tonight. I honestly don't have time. Moving? He looked surprised. Where are you moving to? That's my personal business, boss. It was all because my mom had been hounding me every day about my progress with Chris. I couldn't take it anymore, so I decided to move out and get some peace for a while. But this was also the first time in 25 years that I'd ever lived alone, so I was actually kind of excited and looking forward to it. I didn't have much luggage. By 8 o'clock, my new little place was already set up. On my way to the nearby convenience store to buy daily necessities, I ran into Julian. I hadn't planned on acknowledging him, but he called out to me. What a coincidence, Emma. What are you doing here? These days, everyone in the group chat was mocking him for pretending to be a rich second generation, and thanks to him I'd been treated as a joke for years. But in truth, Julian had never actually done anything bad to me. I live nearby, I said. What a coincidence. So do I. But I haven't seen you around before. Did you just move in? Yeah. I moved in tonight, I said. While we talked, I paid for my stuff. I didn't notice the cashier had slipped a little extra something into my bag to avoid giving me loose change. I was about to say goodbye to Julian, but he enthusiastically followed me out of the store, insisting on carrying my bags. I couldn't shake him off, so I let him. It's so late, and you just moved in, he said. A girl shouldn't walk around alone at night. I'll walk you back. I didn't refuse. If he wanted to escort me, then fine. We walked side by side, and when we reached the building entrance, he suddenly spoke. Actually, back then, I didn't mean to reject you like that. Knowing you liked me, I was really happy. I frowned. Why was he suddenly bringing that up? You know now that I'm the driver's son at Chris's house, he went on. So I won't hide it from you anymore. I've lived in Chris's shadow my whole life. He's the high and mighty young master of the family. I'm just the servant's kid. I studied hard because I wanted to change my fate. I'm pretty busy, I said dryly. Can you skip to the point? He looked a little embarrassed and cleared his throat. What I want to say is, the reason I turned you down back then was because Chris threatened me. He said that if I dared accept your confession, he'd fire my dad and make sure I couldn't graduate. He already knew I planned to study abroad after university, so if I got together with you, he'd ruin that too. What does whether you accept me or not have to do with him? I asked, completely baffled. Why would he threaten you? I honestly could not wrap my head around such a ridiculous reason. I didn't know either at the time, Julian said. But now I do. It's because he liked you. So he used his power to threaten me. I frowned even harder. I didn't even know Chris in high school. I'm telling you this because I want you to know he's not a good person, Julian said. You're with him now, so you need to be careful, don't let him hurt you. Right. Here it was, trying to sow discord. Too bad his little plan totally missed the mark. Chris and I were just superior and subordinate, not a couple. After seeing Julian off, I turned to head upstairs, only to spot a shadowy figure not far away. My heart leaped into my throat, and I almost screamed, until the figure spoke. Still not over him. It was Chris. You scared me to death. I gasped. He walked over with a stormy expression. So the reason you turned me down tonight was to spend time with him. What kind of logic was that? And why are you even here, boss? I asked my mom to ask your mom where you moved, he said. I came to see you. Boss, specially coming all the way here, is there something you needed? He frowned. It's after work. Don't call me that. I'm perfectly serious, I replied. Even after work, you're still my boss. He looked me up and down slowly, making my skin crawl. What? I stammered. What's been wrong with you lately, he asked. You're being so distant. Do you have a problem with me? Guilty conscience flared. I turned on my heel and headed up the stairs. How would I dare have a problem with my boss? It's late. Take care on your way back, I won't see you out. I hadn't expected him to actually chase after me. Startled, I broke into a run. Apparently he was just as stubborn, he ran right after me. So there we were, at night, ignoring the elevator and running up the stairwell one after the other. If anyone saw us, they'd be scared half to death. By the end, I was so exhausted I slumped against the wall by my apartment door. The bags from the convenience store slipped from my hands and spilled all over the floor. What are you even trying to do? I panted. His gaze swept over the things on the ground. He was about to look away when something caught his eye and his gaze abruptly stopped. I followed the direction of his stare, and froze too. This? I didn't buy this. His expression grew darker and darker. A nervous flutter rose in my chest. I hurried to shove everything back into the bags and stood up. The cashier must have given me the wrong thing when I paid, I muttered. I opened the door behind me and was just about to slip inside when he braced a hand against it, stopping me. I'm your boss, he said. I've come all the way to your place. You're not going to invite me in. His face was as dark as a brewing storm. I didn't dare refuse and stepped aside to let him in. I just moved in tonight, I said quickly. There's nothing to eat at home. If you want something to drink, I only have bottled water. He walked in and glanced casually around the nearly empty living room. Julian lives here too, he said. Did you move here because of him? Why were we back to him again? I had no idea he lived here beforehand, I said. In that case, move somewhere else, Chris said flatly. I'll have someone help you relocate. He looked at me with a serious, unwavering gaze, clearly not joking at all. I don't know why, but Julian's words suddenly flashed through my mind. Before I could stop myself, I blurted out, Julian said the reason he turned me down back then, was because you threatened him. He froze for a second, then raised a brow. So what if I did? I hadn't expected him to admit it without even thinking. For a moment, I was speechless. Strictly speaking, it doesn't really count as a threat, he said lazily. I just told him that if he rejected you, I'd fund his studies overseas. In the end, between you and studying abroad, he chose studying abroad. You can't blame me for that. That version was a little different from Julian's. So now you're questioning me on his behalf, he asked. Blaming me for ruining your romance? He slowly walked over to me, displeasure flickering in his eyes. My heart stuttered. I instinctively took a step back, bumped into the shelf behind me, and stumbled. The bags I'd just picked up spilled all over the floor again. That little box lay there in the open, shining like a neon sign. I looked up at him on reflex, only to fall straight into those unfathomably dark eyes of his. I'm doomed. How could just meeting his eyes make my heart race this hard? Afraid he could hear it pounding, my brain short-circuited and my mouth ran ahead of me. I can't use that thing anyway, I blurted. Why don't I just give it to you? Silence. 1 second. 2 seconds. He leisurely bent down, picked up that burning hot little box, and walked right up to me. Since you're giving it to me so sincerely, he said softly, shouldn't we test how effective it is, in person? My heartbeat sounded absurdly loud in the strange, charged quiet. That's not really something that needs testing, I managed, swallowing hard as I looked up at him. We stared at each other for a long moment. Just when I thought he was going to press the issue, he suddenly changed the subject. It's late. Get some rest. Then he turned and left, taking the little box with him. I stared at the closed door, and actually felt a little disappointed. I despised myself. The next morning, just as I was heading out for work, I ran into Julian downstairs with his luggage. He was obviously moving out. When he saw me, he glared resentfully. I tried to warn you, but you wouldn't listen. Fine, whatever. But you actually asked him to kick me out? Emma, you're ruthless. I blinked. What was he even talking about? There was no beginning or end to his accusations. Too lazy to argue, I turned and walked off. Over the weekend, I went shopping with my childhood friend. We were picking out clothes in a boutique when, of all people, Lucy and Grace walked in. They were clearly here to pick a fight. Whatever we liked, they insisted on buying the exact same thing. My friend was so angry she rolled up her sleeves, ready to throw down. If you can't afford anything, don't come in, Lucy sneered. Why act like a shrew in public? Grace chimed in, Emma, I heard later that Chris already has a fiancée. She's the rich heiress of the lawn group. Someone like you is just a barnyard hen, don't even dream of marrying into a wealthy family. Each sentence was nastier than the last. My friend wanted to curse them out, but I stopped her, dragging her toward the exit. I wasn't expecting to run straight into Chris. And beside him, was Lily. The timing couldn't have been worse. It felt like they'd shown up just to slap me in the face. Sure enough, Grace and Lucy's laughter got even louder. Chris walked up to me. What's wrong? He glanced at Lucy and Grace and seemed to put the pieces together. Someone bullying you? He raised his hand, about to ruffle my hair like we were close, but I kept my head down and dodged. His expression froze. Grace immediately stepped forward. President G, I heard your fiancée is the lawn group's heiress. Is that true? Before Chris could answer, Lily looked genuinely stunned. Since when am I your fiancé, Chris? She asked. And why don't I know about it? Lucy and Grace both gaped. You're Lily? Lily gave a short laugh, then shot them a cutting look. And who exactly do you think you are, that you dare spread rumors about me everywhere? But everyone says so, Grace protested. How can you say we're the ones spreading rumors when everyone says, huh? Chris's brows lifted slightly in surprise. He glanced at my silent face, suddenly seemed to understand something, and looked a bit annoyed with himself. We need to talk, he said, grabbing my hand and walking off. My friend, worried, was about to run after us, but Lily stopped her. Don't worry, they'll be fine, she said lightly. They're just a little couple having a lover's quarrel. My friend looked at her. You're really not President G's fiancée? Lily almost laughed. Of course I'm not. What do you want to talk about? I asked once Chris and I were away from the others. I was wrong, he said. I lied to you before. Lily isn't in love with me, and she's definitely not my fiancée. In fact, we're related. Her mom and my mom are cousins. That was a lot of information. My brain stalled. Then we made a bet, he said. Whoever stayed single the longest would have to give up 10% of the profits on this joint project between our two companies. So that day when Lily heard I was pregnant and her face turned so dark, it wasn't because of me. She was upset about her money. So I wasn't the clown. I was a pure, textbook tool. Boss, you don't have to explain all this to me, I said quietly. My friend's still waiting for me. I turned to leave. But there's actually one more main reason, he called after me. I stopped and looked back. His clear eyes were fixed steadily on me. For 7 years, he said slowly, I've imagined 1,000 different scenarios, how I would finally say that one sentence to you. But it was never supposed to be like this. Not here, in a mall, in this kind of situation. He sounded genuinely frustrated. But I thought. I already knew what that sentence was. Julian had said it before. He likes me. Sure enough. I like you. The words in my heart and his voice overlapped perfectly. I looked up and met his gaze. I didn't move. I didn't speak. All I could feel was my heart racing, my breathing growing heavier, my blood rushing faster through my veins. Chris said he likes me. We've known each other for so many years. It's not like I'd never secretly wondered if he might like me. But I'd never dared hope it was real. And now, he'd actually said it out loud. Seeing me stand there without reacting, Chris grew uncertain. I knew saying it would scare you, he said, a little helpless. Emma, I didn't mean to hide it for so long. I just wanted to take it one step at a time, slowly. I didn't realize that keeping quiet would make you suffer so much ridicule and injustice. When did you start liking me? I asked. My eyes were bright on his face. He stared at me for a moment, then, seeing the answer in my gaze, his brows relaxed and a quiet smile tugged at his lips. He stepped closer and tentatively touched my hair. This time, I didn't dodge. At the reunion, he said softly, I was telling the truth. I really did fall for you in my senior year of high school. But I never saw you in high school, I said, stunned. But I saw you, he replied. Right, so he'd seen me, while I'd been oblivious. Putting men over friends, without a second thought, I grabbed his arm to go find my childhood friend, only to discover that all 4 people in the store were gone. Just as I reached for my phone to call her, I saw a message she'd sent 10 minutes ago. She'd gone off shopping with Lily. I'm at the mall today for work inspections, Chris said. Since your friend ran off with the client, you can stay and keep me company. Boss, your intention to make me work overtime could not be more obvious, I groaned. Obvious? He smiled. All these years, I've been racking my brains for ways to spend more time alone with you. So that's the real reason behind all my overtime? Pack up all the clothes this young lady just tried on, Chris suddenly said to the shop assistant. The clerk stared at him, stunned. They'd clearly heard every word of the gossip earlier, so now they were scrambling to process it. So, the chairman of G Group's real fiancée wasn't that woman from before, but the one standing right here? My heart lurched. What are you doing? I hissed. Helping you vent, he said calmly. I didn't understand, but later, Chris went absolutely crazy. He said he was there to inspect, yet every store we walked into, he insisted on buying me things, having them wrapped and delivered straight to my rental apartment. I tried to stop him, but it was useless. In the end, I gave up and let him. It's not like he was short on money anyway. When he drove me back to my building and I was about to get out, he hit the lock button and kept the car doors shut. You're not inviting me up for a while, he asked. The dim streetlights outside spilled into the car, casting his face half in shadow, half in light. In that half-dark glow, his eyes were soft and burning. It's late, he murmured. You should head back. It's only 8. Is that late? I countered. The problem is, he said, voice even lower, I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself if I stay any longer. Emma, how can you be so heartless? I knew he was being dramatic on purpose, but my heart still melted into a useless puddle. I couldn't help leaning closer. I'd meant to kiss his cheek, but he turned his head at just the right moment, and my lips landed on his instead. I didn't even have time to be shocked before a strong arm wrapped around my waist and pulled me toward him. My heartbeat went wild. Unthinkingly, my fingers tightened around his arm. In the small, sealed space, the air grew hotter, heavier, tinged with something sweet and dangerous. Our body temperatures climbed, breath tangled. I felt like I was about to suffocate. And that, of course, was exactly when my mom appeared. I truly had to hand it to her, her timing was flawless. We were like two high schoolers caught secretly making out, and we obediently followed her upstairs. She didn't scold us, though. She just asked if we'd eaten. When we said we had, she asked after Chris's mother. Chris replied that his mom was traveling. Then she asked how work had been lately. I couldn't take it anymore. Mom, if you have something to say, just say it. Stop circling around. I know her too well. Fine, I'll be direct, she said, turning to Chris. When exactly are you two getting married? My heart clenched. Mom, isn't that a little too soon? I blurted. She shot me a glare. I'm asking him. You, be quiet. Auntie, Chris said politely, I'm dating Emma with marriage as the goal. You can rest assured about that. As for when we get married, he glanced at me, eyes warm. Personally, I'd like it as soon as possible, right away, if I could. But I have to respect Emma's wishes. What was going on? My heart was hammering all over again. When did he propose, and when did I agree? When I managed to propose successfully, he added, I'll tell you and my mother first. Propose. Things were moving a little fast, we'd officially gotten together today. It's not fast, he said lightly, as if reading my mind. We've known each other for years, Emma. I stared at him. How do you always know what I'm thinking? I had no idea when my mom slipped out. By the time I snapped back to myself, the only people left in the apartment were Chris and me. He made no move to leave. He just looked straight at me. Your thoughts are all written on your face, he said. It's not that hard to guess. Fine, I muttered. Go on. You should head back now, I added. You got interrupted by your future mother-in-law just now. You're going to have to make up for that. He raised a brow. Then I'll collect a long and thorough compensation. By the time that long, breath-stealing compensation was finally over, my eyes were already misty from his kisses and my lips were swollen and sore. You should go home now, I whispered. You were much easier to trick when you were drunk, he sighed, pulling me back into his arms and resting his forehead on my shoulder. Do you know I've waited 7 years for this? His breath brushed against my bare skin, warm and ticklish, sending a shiver down my spine. To be able to hold you openly, with a clear conscience. I know. Now you should go, I protested weakly. Later, I found out that back in high school, when the driver came to pick Julian up, Chris would sometimes be sitting in the car too. While Julian was still in class, he would watch the gate. Every time I walked out of school, he would see me. It eventually became a habit for him, coming to pick Julian up and quietly watching me leave campus. On the day of the college entrance exam, it was Chris who told the driver to bring me that umbrella. But at the time, he was under enormous pressure from the family business. He had to become strong enough to take over G Group. There was no room for distractions. So after weighing everything again and again, he went abroad without a word. Even then, he kept secretly checking up on me from overseas. When I was in my junior year of college, he was so afraid I'd start dating that he flew back to the country again and again. And everything after that? I already knew. No wonder it had always felt like coincidence when I ran into him everywhere. Turned out every chance encounter had been carefully arranged by someone all along. These days, my mom and Chris's mother see each other constantly. Even though nothing's officially set in stone yet, they've already picked out names for future kids. I'm helpless in the face of their enthusiasm. It seems that if we want them to become grandmothers sooner rather than later, we're going to have to put in some extra effort. Chris sat on the sofa, his gaze burning into me. It's getting late, I said. When exactly are you going home? He arched a brow and stepped closer, one slow step at a time, catching hold of me just as I was about to sneak away. Pulling me into his arms, he drew in a deep breath. I'm not going back tonight. In the end, I never did get pregnant from that fake pregnancy rumor, but I did end up with a real fiancé who hoards my overtime and my kisses alike. Between meetings, wedding plans, and two moms rushing us to give them a grandchild, I finally understood, this was the sweetest kind of trap.